This object was not removed following an incident, complaint, or emergency response. Its transfer occurred after a series of routine interactions produced consistent deviations that could not be reconciled through standard observation protocols. No public notice was issued at the time of removal. No justification was required. The object was initially catalogued as non-biological and non-responsive. Its classification did not change throughout the duration of observation. At the time of first registration, the object was located in a private residence in Key West, Florida. The residence was not under medical or psychiatric supervision. No environmental risk factors were identified. No documentation exists explaining why the object was retained rather than discarded. Early handling notes describe the object as inert. These notes repeat without variation across multiple entries. During initial custody, the object was handled by different individuals under identical conditions. Each handler submitted reports independently. The reports were consistent in structure, but varied slightly in descriptive emphasis. These variations were not considered significant. Observers noted that the object appeared unchanged between sessions. No physical displacement was confirmed. However, several reports describe uncertainty regarding the orientation of the object when re-entering the room. This uncertainty was logged as subjective. No attempt was made to establish a baseline perception. As handling continued, the object was relocated multiple times within the same facility. These relocations were not prompted by damage, deterioration, or external request. They were described as procedural adjustments. Inventory records indicate that the object was present during each audit. However, the exact placement could not always be confirmed retroactively. This discrepancy was marked as non-critical. Repeated exposure did not result in observable physical response from the object. No movement was recorded. No audible output was detected. No mechanical explanation was proposed. Despite this, documentation began to show signs of convergence. Phrases used to describe the object appeared with increasing frequency across unrelated reports. This repetition was attributed to standardized language. At no point was the object classified as hazardous. At no point was access restricted. Over time, personnel assigned to routine handling requested reassignment. These requests were not accompanied by formal complaints. No reasons were provided. The requests were approved without inquiry. Subsequent handlers demonstrated shorter interaction periods. This was noted but not addressed. Extended observation sessions produced inconsistent temporal perception among reviewers. Several reports indicate difficulty determining how long the object had been under review during a given session. Timekeeping equipment functioned normally. This effect was not escalated. During later stages of custody, the object no longer required direct interaction to be documented. Observation notes reference prior observations rather than current ones. Language becomes circular. No corrective action was taken. A review committee convened to assess the necessity of continued monitoring. The committee concluded that no actionable data was being produced. This conclusion was reached unanimously. No recommendation for disposal was issued. No recommendation for transfer was issued. The object was approved for long-term storage. Final documentation does not specify the authority responsible for clearance. Signatures are present but inconsistent with personnel rosters from the same period. This inconsistency was logged and marked as resolved. Following clearance, the object remained accessible under general archival parameters. No contextual briefing was required for access. No warnings were posted. Playback of associated audio documentation increased after archival approval. The cause of this increase was not determined. Individuals accessing the object did not submit formal feedback. The absence of feedback was recorded as compliance. At no point did the object indicate termination of relevance. At no point was observation formally concluded. The object remains catalogued. It remains available. Further review determined that prolonged proximity to the object did not produce immediate physiological effects. No measurable changes in heart rate, respiration, or motor response were recorded during controlled exposure periods. This absence of response was noted repeatedly. Psychological screening was not mandated. The decision was based on the object's continued classification as inert. Despite this, documentation shows a gradual reduction in descriptive specificity. Early reports reference dimensions, material condition, and placement. Later reports reference only presence. The object is increasingly described in relation to its environment rather than its own attributes. This shift was not addressed. During one review cycle, it was noted that identical phrases appeared across multiple reports submitted weeks apart. The reviewers responsible for these reports were not working concurrently. No coordination was identified. The repetition was attributed to familiarity. No effort was made to revise reporting guidelines. At a later stage, discrepancies emerged between scheduled observation times and submitted documentation timestamps. In several cases, reports were filed before the corresponding observation window officially began. System logs did not indicate error. These discrepancies were not escalated. Storage conditions remained constant. Temperature, lighting, and spatial orientation did not vary. Environmental monitoring systems reported no irregularities. The object remained unchanged. A request was submitted to temporarily relocate the object to a secondary holding area. The request did not specify a reason. Approval was granted. Records indicate the object was moved. No record confirms the destination. Subsequent audits list the object as present. The location field is left blank. This omission was corrected retroactively without comment. As documentation continued, references to the object's initial acquisition became less frequent. Later entries assume prior knowledge that is not present in the archive. Cross-referencing efforts did not yield additional context. During a scheduled compliance check, a reviewer noted difficulty recalling the exact moment the object entered the room. The reviewer confirmed that the object was present. No further clarification was provided. The comment was logged as observational noise. At no point did any reviewer report fear. At no point did any reviewer report distress. However, post-review debrief forms show increased response latency. Questions were answered correctly, but with delay. This was attributed to fatigue. In the final operational year of the facility, The object was no longer assigned a specific custodian. Access was governed by general clearance rather than individual authorization. This change was implemented without announcement. Documentation from this period is sparse. Reports reference prior reports. Observations reference previous observations. The object is present by implication. A final assessment was conducted to determine whether continued storage was justified. The assessment concluded that removal would require more documentation than retention. Retention was therefore approved. No end date was assigned. At the point of archival transfer, the object's identifier was simplified. Supplementary notes were removed. Only the primary designation remained. The rationale for this simplification is not documented. Once archived, the objects ceased to generate new reports. However, access logs indicate continued review activity. Reviewers access the file more frequently than comparable entries. No edits were made. The file remained unchanged. An automated system check confirmed that the object record did not contain executable instructions, embedded media, or active signals. The check passed. The object remained inert. In subsequent years, references to the object appear sporadically in unrelated documentation. These references are brief and lack context. They do not prompt action. No effort was made to consolidate these mentions. At the time of final audit, the object was confirmed to be present. The audit did not specify where. No follow-up was scheduled. The object remains catalogued under long-term storage protocols. Access continues under default conditions. No review cycle is currently active. No closure has been recorded.